Hi, Espresso here. Well, today is all about fishing Inchiku jigs. Now, what is an Inchiku jig? An Inchiku jig is a combination really of a slow pitch jig, which gets hit on the drop a lot. And that's the shape of the jig, imparting different actions, lead weight to get it down there. As well as that, we've got a skirt, which acts more like a slow jig. It gets hit on the retrieve a lot. Gets hit on the drop for sure, but on the retrieve, like a slow jig, fish will just come up and take a bite. So an Inchiku jig is a combination, really, of a slow pitch jig, which gets hit on the drop, and a slow jig, which gets hit on the retrieve. So you've got it combined, you've got a bet both ways, so it catches a lot of fish, a lot of species that you really wouldn't expect to, but most species of fish will attack this because fish eat fish. Why does this resemble a fish? It resembles a panicked, injured bait fish, especially on the drop. It is flashing all over the place depending on the shape of the lead weight. And then on the retrieve, you've got these skirts just pulling the food away from the fish, and they'll often take a bite on the retrieve. So you've got to bet both ways, catch a lot of different species on these jigs. Now there's a couple of great techniques with your Inchiku fishing that you mix up through the day just to see what the fish are interested in at that time. And I'll show you. Let the jig free fall on the drop. Let it do what it's designed to do. And different jigs have different actions. You spark up fish whether they're hungry or not because of that erratic, panicked action. Now retrieving the jig. This is really where you come into play in determining what the fish are going to bite at that time and that day. There's a few different techniques. Combine them, change them, and you'll catch a lot of fish. Firstly, after that erratic drop, do a few more high lifts, maybe a few winds, really get that jig flashing around, panicking, sending out the vibration of, whoa, I'm panicked, I'm a wounded bait fish, ready to be eaten. Do a few really big lifts, maybe a little bit of a slow mechanical jig, drop it back down if you haven't had a bite. As soon as it touches the sea floor, you've got your rod tip pointed, just lift it, and then a very, very slow wind up. A constant wind I find is better than a stopping or pausing wind. Just a constant wind to have that skirt moving up through the water column and away from the fish. Their food's leaving them and they come up and take a bite. Set the hooks. They come with twin hooks generally, which spreads the loads over different parts of the mouth, so you can use smaller hooks that are generally thinner gauge and sharper. So vary your technique through the day from slow jig, really slow winding, just that constant motion, that constant moving up through the water column, have that little tentacles moving away from the fish and they take a bite. And then also in parts quite an aggressive lift where that Inchiku shoots up panicked and then drops it back down again. Just fish the entire water column if you wish, or where you've marked the fish on your sounder, keep it in that bite zone. Now an Inchiku jig is almost designed to evade fish because of this erratic action on the drop all over the place. So if you like, it's kind of like those white butterflies or butterflies that just dob around all over the place and bounce and use the airwaves to avoid getting eaten. Really hard to catch a butterfly, isn't it? So what you've got to remember is when you've got an Inchiku, it's kind of like a butterfly. It's flashing around on the drop, really hard to get hold of. It racks fish up, it gets them interested, but you've got to allow them to take a bite. So even with its flashing around, every now and then, slow it right down, even stationary in the water, or that slow jig, because you don't want to avoid the fish all the time. Rack them up, they can't get hold of it, but slow it right down so they can see it and time their strike. So then when you're retrieving it slow jig style, just moving up through the water column nice and easily, the fish can time their strike because it's a predictable or a more even retrieve rather than a speed retrieve or on the drop where it's very difficult to get hold of. Because you want the fish to take a bite, that's what we're out here for. And another brilliant method and technique is rod holder. You see how we're rocking at the moment? Well, that down at the bottom of the sea just imparts this beautiful rocking motion to your jig, a nice fluttering, a nice action. So rod holder, brilliant at catching with Inchiku. Your choice, whether it's overhead or spin, really just comes down to your confidence, your technique. You can use both, highly effective both ways. The spin has a little bit of an advantage, say on the drop, because you completely free fall. But the overhead also gets you in contact with the jig, so you tend to feel a few more strikes. It's over to you. Both work extremely well. So what type of rod should you really use? Well, The rod doesn't put a great deal of action into the Inchiku. The Inchiku has a lot of its design features inherently built in, so your rod is more your preference. I like using either slow pitch or jigging rods. Slow pitch because they're highly sensitive like this one. You can really feel any bite, any tentative take, set the hook. Really like using slow pitch. And an Inchiku jig is a slow pitch and slow jig combined. You could use your micro jig rods, you can use jigging rods, really your choice, run what you brung, but in my personal preference I'll be using slow pitch. So where do you attach your leader to a typical Inchiku jig? Attach it to the front of the jig itself. So what do you look for in a good Inchiku jig? You're looking for a body which is asymmetric, it's not symmetrical, so it imparts an erratic action. Some good colour combinations, possibly some luminous paint in there to show through the dark water, even in the shallow areas, much easier to see. Good strong skirts and good strong hooks inside those skirts, because you never know what size fish you're going to catch. Anything from your just legal snapper through to your 20-30 kilogram kingfish and other species. Love these Inchikus. So that's really it for Inchiku fishing. It's really simple, highly effective, and a ton of fun as well. So don't forget, tie your leader to the jig itself. You'll catch a lot more fish that way. Allow it to free fall, then do some aggressive lifts with a rod, get that jig flashing around in the water, getting really aggressive, really erratic, and then slow everything down. Nice, slow retrieve as well. Vary your technique, and you'll catch all sorts of different species on the Inchiku jig. Espresso out.